Hey there, are your noodles often sticking to the middle? This does not have to be in the pot on its own. Sometimes you're using an old pot maybe, and if the surface is damaged, this could definitely be the pot, but often the reason is not the pot at all. Sometimes it is something that you can easily avoid with just a few steps. First of all, make sure that you are putting the noodles into the boiling water. Never put them into cold water because the noodles start to dissolve and release some of their strength into the cold water before they start to boil. And this leads to the water mixture just getting a lot more strength, and this settles down and forms this really rubbery surface on the bottom of the pot. Second of all, always make sure that when the noodles hit the water, you are stirring because the first minute is critical here. When the noodles start to release the strength into the water, that is often settling down on the bottom of the top, and they form a really nasty surface that you really have to scratch off afterwards. So always if the noodles hits the water, you are starting to stir, and you keep the water and the noodles in motion. So after this, make sure that you don't just leave the noodles unobserved for a longer time, because even after this, if the noodles are settling down on the bottom of the pot, there's a high risk that if the noodle hits the metal, they will just merge and the noodles are starting to burn on the bottom of the pot. You also would not want the water to boil over and leave a mess on the surface. When your noodles reach the desired density, you may want to put another pot with a sieve inside into your sink and drop the noodles and the noodle water into the sink sieve. So this way you can get rid of the noodle water on the noodles and you can catch some of it. Because the noodle water is excellent for making the sauce later since it's got all of the strength of the noodles and makes it really sticky. So the sauce will bind a lot easier and it will stick to the noodles perfectly. Now if you put the second pot or the first pot back on the stove, make sure that you don't put it on the hot stove plate instantly. You want to put it on a cold plate because obviously the moment you put it back on, it will start to cook again or reheat again. And this is a moment where stuff instantly starts burning onto the bottom of the pot. So once you put it on the cold plate on the stove, you put all of the stuff back into the pot that you want to use for the sauce. And then when you are ready, then you put it back on the hot side on the stove. Because now you have to stir almost all the time in order to not burn the sauce. Now that you're done with the noodles and with the sauce, you can either prepare them on a plate or store them in some microwavable containers. And if you did everything right, you shouldn't have any really sticky substances left in the pot. So the best way to clean it is either rinsing it out really quick and then using some warm or hot water to get the rest out. Sometimes you need a little bit of dishwashing soap, but most of the time you should be good. If you, for some reason, still got some sticky substance on the bottom of the pot, then you may want to use some vinegar, because the really sour acid in the vinegar is perfect to dissolve the strength inside of the leftovers. You just cover the entire ground of the pot in the vinegar. And best to use a really high concentrate. And then you put the pot back somewhere in the sink or so, and let it sit for about half an hour to an hour. Honestly, there's no time limit, but obviously make sure that it's not evaporating over time. And after the little break, you can use a Kleenex or some kitchen paper and try to scoop out the rest of the sticky substance. And most of the time this is more than enough. You can rinse it out with a bit of warm water again, and there you go. This is much faster than cooking your noodles and throwing them in instantly, getting a really thick layer of sticky substance and ending the day with cleaning the pot for 30 or 40 minutes. So yeah, I hope these tips really help you out, and if they did, please consider to like the video, and if you got any comments or additional tips, leave them in the comments. Until then, happy noodle cooking. Bye! You can either prepare them on a plate or you can put it into some microwavable, not furniture, oh my gosh. And this leads us to the third point. Because once you're stirring and the noodles are boiling, then it's absolutely important. What is important? Wait, what's the third point? I think there's no third point. Start preparing the sauce and move the pot back on the hot side of the sauce. Once your noodles reach the desired intensity, and you sink them into the sink. Yeah, that's super smart.